Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. In a sleek, high-rise boardroom in New York, the room was filled with the quiet hum of conversation. The polished wooden table gleamed under the soft, warm lighting, creating an atmosphere of quiet luxury. At the head of the table sat Emma, a 6-year-old waitress who had never imagined herself in this kind of setting. She was here on a blind date, but not with someone she had planned to meet. No, today was a complete mix-up. She had mistakenly sat at the wrong table. The man across from her, a well-dressed figure in a tailored suit, looked up from his phone, slightly startled by her sudden approach. He blinked at her, momentarily lost for words, before finally offering a polite smile. But Emma didn't notice the hesitation. She took the seat across from him, her nerves spiking as she fumbled with the napkin in front of her. The man, Kevin, as she believed, paused, clearly unsure of how to respond. But something about Emma's earnest smile made him hesitate before he nodded slightly. Emma, relieved that he was playing along, continued to chatter nervously. He hesitated, then gave a nonchalant shrug. He chuckled lightly, clearly amused by her bluntness. Emma continued, her nervous energy making her talk even faster. Kevin raised an eyebrow, intrigued by her down-to-earth honesty. Kevin's smile widened, and he leaned slightly forward. Their conversation continued to flow, the initial awkwardness slowly melting away as they found common ground. Emma shared stories about her shifts at the diner, and her dreams of one day opening her own art studio. She didn't realize it, but Kevin was listening closely, captivated not by her appearance, but by the sincerity in her voice. As they spoke, Emma's phone buzzed. She glanced at it only to see a message from her friend Jenny. "Hey Emma, where are you? I'm at table 7, looking forward to meeting you, Kevin." Her heart sank as the reality of the mix-up dawned on her. She looked up at the man across from her, cheeks burning with embarrassment. Kevin's smile faltered, and guilt flickered in his eyes. Emma stood abruptly, her face redder than ever. Kevin stood too, but before she could make her hasty exit, he called out to her. But Emma was already halfway to the door, her face a portrait of mortification. She didn't look back as she fled the restaurant, the sound of her footsteps echoing in the quiet room. As she hurried out into the night, Kevin stood in the middle of the boardroom, a strange mix of regret and curiosity swirling in his chest. He had intended to correct her from the start, but now he found himself wondering, would he ever see her again? And why did the thought of not seeing her bother him so much? Back in her small apartment, Emma collapsed onto the couch, groaning in frustration as she buried her face in a pillow. She couldn't believe she had made such a fool of herself. Jenny's voice echoed through the apartment, teasing her about the mishap. Emma sat up, still embarrassed, and recounted the events of the night. She couldn't believe how wrong everything had gone. Jenny raised an eyebrow, skeptical. Emma lowered the pillow from her face, her expression conflicted. Jenny shrugged, clearly unbothered by Emma's embarrassment. Emma wasn't so sure, but the seed of doubt had been planted. The next morning, Liam, Kevin's real name, sat in his penthouse suite, looking out over the glittering New York City skyline. His thoughts were far from the usual business worries. His mind kept drifting back to Emma and their conversation the night before. There was something about her, something different from the women he usually met in his circles. He couldn't shake the feeling that he needed to see her again. After finishing his work for the day, Liam picked up his phone and typed out a message to Emma. He hesitated for a moment before hitting send. Emma stared at the message in disbelief. She had never expected to hear from him again, let alone receive such a message. She showed it to Jenny, who was grinning at her from across the room. Jenny's response was immediate. And so, with a mix of excitement and nerves, Emma replied with a simple, "Okay, coffee sounds nice." Little did she know, this coffee meeting would lead to a series of events that would change her life forever. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. In a sleek, high-rise boardroom in New York, the room was filled with the quiet hum of conversation. The polished wooden table gleamed under the soft, warm lighting, creating an atmosphere of quiet luxury. At the head of the table sat Emma, a 26-year-old waitress who had never imagined herself in this kind of setting. She was here on a blind date, but not with someone she had planned to meet. No, today was a complete mix-up. She had mistakenly sat at the wrong table. The man across from her, a well-dressed figure in a tailored suit, looked up from his phone, slightly startled by her sudden approach. He blinked at her, momentarily lost for words, before finally offering a polite smile. But Emma didn't notice the hesitation. She took the seat across from him, her nerves spiking as she fumbled with the napkin in front of her. The man, Kevin, as she believed, paused, clearly unsure of how to respond. But something about Emma's earnest smile made him hesitate before he nodded slightly. Emma, relieved that he was playing along, continued to chatter nervously. He hesitated, then gave a nonchalant shrug. He chuckled lightly, clearly amused by her bluntness. Emma continued, her nervous energy making her talk even faster. Kevin raised an eyebrow, intrigued by her down-to-earth honesty. Kevin's smile widened, and he leaned slightly forward. Their conversation continued to flow, the initial awkwardness slowly melting away as they found common ground. Emma shared stories about her shifts at the diner and her dreams of one day opening her own art studio. She didn't realize it, but Kevin was listening closely, captivated not by her appearance but by the sincerity in her voice. As they spoke, Emma's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, only to see a message from her friend Jenny. "Hey Emma, where are you? I'm at table 7, looking forward to meeting you, Kevin." Her heart sank as the reality of the mix-up dawned on her. She looked up at the man across from her, cheeks burning with embarrassment. Kevin's smile faltered, and guilt flickered in his eyes. Emma stood abruptly, her face redder than ever. Kevin stood too, but before she could make her hasty exit, he called out to her. But Emma was already halfway to the door, her face a portrait of mortification. She didn't look back as she fled the restaurant, the sound of her footsteps echoing in the quiet room. As she hurried out into the night, Kevin stood in the middle of the boardroom, a strange mix of regret and curiosity swirling in his chest. He had intended to correct her from the start, but now he found himself wondering, would he ever see her again? And why did the thought of not seeing her bother him so much? Back in her small apartment, Emma collapsed onto the couch, groaning in frustration as she buried her face in a pillow. She couldn't believe she had made such a fool of herself. Jenny's voice echoed through the apartment, teasing her about the mishap. Emma sat up, still embarrassed, and recounted the events of the night. She couldn't believe how wrong everything had gone. Jenny raised an eyebrow, skeptical. Emma lowered the pillow from her face, her expression conflicted. Jenny shrugged, clearly unbothered by Emma's embarrassment. Emma wasn't so sure, but the seed of doubt had been planted. The next morning, Liam, Kevin's real name, sat in his penthouse suite, looking out over the glittering New York City skyline. His thoughts were far from the usual business worries. His mind kept drifting back to Emma and their conversation the night before. There was something about her, something different from the women he usually met in his circles. He couldn't shake the feeling that he needed to see her again. After finishing his work for the day, Liam picked up his phone and typed out a message to Emma. He hesitated for a moment before hitting send. Emma stared at the message in disbelief. She had never expected to hear from him again, let alone receive such a message. She showed it to Jenny, who was grinning at her from across the room. Jenny's response was immediate. And so, with a mix of excitement and nerves, Emma replied with a simple, "Okay, coffee sounds nice." Little did she know, this coffee meeting would lead to a series of events that would change her life forever. The next morning, Emma sat on her couch, staring at her phone. The message from Liam was still there, sitting in her inbox like a strange, almost impossible invitation. She couldn't believe he'd reached out after their embarrassing meeting the night before. It was almost like a dream, or maybe a mistake. She ran a hand through her hair and sighed. Was this some kind of joke? No, he seemed genuine. But could she trust him? She picked up her phone again, her thumb hovering over the reply button. Coffee sounds nice. That was the message she had typed, the simplest response she could muster. And yet, as she hit send, she couldn't help but feel a nervous flutter in her chest. Why did this matter so much? It was just coffee, right? She glanced over at her friend Jenny, who had been watching her intently. Jenny's grin was wide, her eyes filled with excitement. Emma smiled, trying to push aside the anxiety she felt. Jenny's eyes lit up, and she jumped off the couch, clapping her hands together. Emma shrugged, her nerves still on edge. Jenny rolled her eyes playfully. Emma nodded slowly, still unsure about what was coming next. A couple of hours later, Emma found herself sitting in a quiet cafe, a cup of steaming coffee in front of her. She checked her phone for the time he was late, but somehow, It wasn't making her feel worse. It just gave her a little more time to think about everything. The mix-up at the restaurant, the embarrassing moments, and now this meeting a man she had never thought she would meet, in a place she never thought she would be. Suddenly, the door chimed as it opened, and Emma looked up. There he was, Liam, dressed casually in a gray sweater and jeans, his presence immediately calming. He caught her eye and smiled, walking toward her. Emma stood up quickly, trying to hide her nervousness. Liam smiled again, taking a seat across from her. There was a slight pause, both of them unsure of what to say next. Emma bit her lip, trying to think of something to fill the silence. Liam chuckled softly. Emma laughed, shaking her head. Liam raised an eyebrow, clearly surprised by her honesty. They both sat in comfortable silence for a moment before Emma decided to ask a question that had been on her mind since last night. Liam leaned back in his chair, considering her question. Emma nodded, intrigued. She had always wondered what it would be like to have a job like that, where the world seemed to depend on what you did. Liam smiled warmly. Emma's eyes lit up as she spoke about her passion. I love painting, and I really want to share that with others. Maybe teach classes or host exhibits. I don't know how to get started yet. Liam nodded, clearly impressed. Emma felt her heart flutter a little at his encouragement. It wasn't something she heard often from people around her, especially those in her life who didn't understand her passion. The conversation continued easily, as they swapped stories about their jobs, their lives, and their hopes for the future. For Emma, it felt like she had known Liam for years, even though it had only been a few hours since they had met. There was something about him, something genuine, something she couldn't quite explain. As they finished their coffee, Liam stood up, offering her a small smile. Emma felt a sudden rush of excitement. This wasn't just a casual coffee meeting anymore. There was something here, something real. As they walked out of the cafe together, Emma couldn't help but think about how different everything felt now. What started as a mix-up, a simple mistake, was slowly turning into something more. But Emma wasn't sure where this would lead. Still, for the first time in a long time, she felt like she had a real chance at something. Something that didn't involve pretending to be someone else. The days that followed felt like a whirlwind to Emma. She couldn't stop thinking about Liam and their coffee date. It wasn't just the way he looked at her or the way he listened so attentively. It was something deeper, something real. She had never met anyone quite like him before. He wasn't like the other guys she had dated, those who only saw her as a waitress, someone they could ignore or take for granted. Liam saw her, really saw her, for the person she was. And that was something she wasn't used to. A week later, Emma was sitting in the same cafe where they had met, waiting for Liam to arrive. She checked her phone for the time he was a little late, but it didn't bother her as much as it had the first time. She was more relaxed now, more comfortable. They had texted a few times, keeping the conversation going, but this would be their second official meeting. She felt a little nervous, but it was a good kind of nervous. The kind that came with excitement and possibility. When the door opened, Emma looked up and saw Liam walking toward her. He looked even more relaxed than last time, dressed casually in a light blue shirt and jeans, with his hair a little more tousled than usual. He smiled when he saw her, and it made her heart skip a beat. Emma smiled back, feeling her cheeks warm as she stood to greet him. He sat down across from her, and they both fell into easy conversation. There was no awkwardness anymore, just a sense of comfort. They talked about everything from the weather to their favorite books and movies. But even though they were talking about simple things, Emma couldn't help but feel that there was something more between them. Something that was growing without either of them having to say it out loud. After a while, the conversation turned to their careers. Liam was talking about a new project he was working on, and Emma listened intently, impressed by how passionate he was about his work. Emma nodded, understanding exactly what he meant. She had always felt that way too. Her job as a waitress wasn't glamorous, but it was a stepping stone for her dreams. She wanted more than just serving food and clearing tables. She wanted to make something of herself. And for the first time, she was starting to believe that maybe, just maybe, she could. Liam leaned forward, his eyes locked on hers. You'll get there, he said, his voice steady and reassuring. I believe in you. The sincerity in his words made Emma's heart swell with emotion. She had never had anyone believe in her like that before, not in the way he did. They continued talking, but Emma couldn't help but feel a shift in the air. There was something more between them now, something that was more than just casual conversation. She could feel it in the way Liam looked at her, in the way he spoke to her. It was like he was starting to see her in a way no one ever had. As the conversation wound down, Liam stood up, offering her his hand with a smile. Emma felt a thrill run through her at the thought. It wasn't just a casual hangout anymore. This was the beginning of something real. She took his hand, smiling up at him. They walked out of the cafe together, and as they stepped into the crisp evening air, Emma couldn't help but wonder what the future might hold. She hadn't expected anything like this to happen, but now that it was, she wasn't sure where it would lead. But for the first time in a long time, she felt like she was on the right path. And maybe, just maybe, Liam was the reason why. It had been a couple of weeks since Emma and Liam had started seeing each other. What began as a simple mix-up at a restaurant had turned into something more, something that neither of them had expected. Their coffee dates had turned into dinners, and those dinners had turned into long conversations late into the night. Emma found herself thinking about him more than she had ever expected. He wasn't like the men she had known in the past. He listened to her, supported her dreams, and treated her like she mattered not just as a waitress, but as a person. Tonight, they were attending a charity gala together, a big event in the city. Emma had been hesitant at first, but Liam insisted. "You'll fit right in," he had said. "And besides, it'll be fun, I promise." So, she agreed. But as she stood in front of the mirror, adjusting her dress, she couldn't help but feel nervous. The gown was beautiful, a dark emerald green that made her feel like someone else, someone special. It was a far cry from the waitress uniform she was used to. She didn't even recognize herself in it. She adjusted the strap of her dress one more time, trying to calm the butterflies in her stomach. A part of her felt like an imposter. She wasn't used to this world of luxury and wealth that Liam inhabited. But then she thought of his words, "You'll fit right in." And somehow, that made her feel a little better. Liam had already texted her that he was on his way, and she took a deep breath as she walked out of her apartment. She felt a mixture of excitement and anxiety, but more than anything, she felt a sense of anticipation. Tonight could change everything. When she arrived at the venue, the glittering lights of the gala made her feel small, yet somehow important. She stepped out of the cab, adjusting her clutch in her hand, and scanned the crowd for Liam. He had told her he'd be waiting at the entrance. A few moments later, she spotted him. Liam was dressed in a sleek black suit, his hair neatly styled, and he looked every bit the part of the millionaire CEO that he was. But when he saw her, his face lit up in a smile that made her heart skip a beat. She smiled back, feeling her cheeks flush. Emma nodded, taking his arm as they walked inside the grand ballroom together. As they entered the ballroom, Emma couldn't help but feel out of place. The room was filled with people in glamorous dresses and sharp tuxedos, all laughing and mingling in their own little worlds. She felt like she was wearing a costume, like she didn't belong. But Liam's presence beside her gave her a sense of comfort, like she wasn't alone in this unfamiliar world. They made their way to the bar, where Liam ordered drinks for both of them. Emma took a sip of her wine, trying to relax, but her nerves were still on edge. The event was beautiful, lavish decorations, soft music playing in the background, but all she could think about was how different this world was from hers. As the evening wore on, Emma and Liam spoke to several people, and she found herself growing more comfortable in the conversations. She even started to enjoy the event, laughing along with the people Liam introduced her to. But every time she looked around, she saw the disparity between her life and theirs. She had always worked hard for everything, struggled to make ends meet, and here she was, surrounded by people whose wealth was as effortless as the air they breathed. Liam seemed to notice her unease. "You okay?" he asked quietly, placing a hand gently on her back. Emma smiled, trying to shake off her doubts. Liam nodded, understanding. "I get it. But you don't have to impress anyone here. Just be yourself." His words were like a weight lifting off her shoulders. She wasn't trying to impress anyone, she realized. She was here for him, not for anyone else. Later that evening, as the music swelled and the lights dimmed, Liam led her onto the dance floor. Emma hesitated for a moment, but then he pulled her gently into his arms, and she let herself relax. The moment their hands touched, it was like the rest of the world faded away. They were just two people, dancing together, enjoying the rhythm of the music. As they swayed to the beat, Liam whispered, "I'm really glad you came tonight." Emma smiled, her heart racing. He smiled, his eyes locking with hers. The music played on, and in that moment Emma realized that maybe, just maybe, she could be part of this world, the world she had never thought she'd fit into. And with Liam by her side, it didn't seem so impossible after all. The night at the gala continued to unfold in a blur of laughter, music, and the soft clinking of glasses. Emma found herself feeling lighter than she had all evening. Liam had a way of making everything seem so easy. When he smiled at her, It felt like the whole room faded away, leaving just the two of them. They moved together through the crowd, talking, laughing, and enjoying each other's company. She was beginning to feel like maybe, just maybe, she belonged here after all. As the evening wore on, Emma couldn't help but notice the way people looked at Liam. He was the center of attention, as always, but there was something different about the way he made her feel like she was the one who mattered. The people he introduced her to were kind and welcoming, not at all like the snobbish crowd she had expected. It was like they were all just people, not the untouchable millionaires she had imagined. When they finally stepped outside for some air, the night was cool, the city lights glittering in the distance. Liam turned to her, his expression soft. "Are you having fun?" he asked, his voice low, as if they were in their own little world, separated from the chaos of the event. Emma smiled, her heart fluttering. "Yeah, I am," she said honestly. "I was nervous at first, but this has been amazing." She looked at him, her eyes meeting his, and for a moment, everything felt right. The nerve she had felt earlier had melted away, replaced by something deeper, something real. She was beginning to realize how much she had started to care for him, and how much she wanted to be part of this life. Liam smiled back, but there was something in his eyes, something that made Emma feel like he was about to say something important. Emma blinked, surprised by his words. "What do you mean?" she asked. Her curiosity piqued. Liam took a deep breath, his gaze steady. "You're different. You're not like the others. You're real. I can talk to you about anything, and you listen. You don't try to impress anyone. You just are yourself." He smiled, but this time there was a hint of something else in his expression, something that spoke of a deeper connection. Emma felt her heart race at his words. She had never felt so seen before. It wasn't about her appearance or what she could offer. It was about who she was, the person she had always tried to be, but had never found the right person to appreciate it. Liam stepped closer to her, his hand gently brushing hers. "You matter, Emma, more than you know." There was a pause as he looked into her eyes, his expression serious. "I don't want you to think this is just some fling. I really like you." His voice was firm, filled with sincerity. Emma's heart skipped a beat. She hadn't expected him to say it so directly, but hearing him say it made her feel a sense of relief, like a weight had been lifted off her shoulders. She had been unsure of where things were going, but now, hearing him say those words, she knew that this wasn't just a passing moment. Liam reached out and gently took her hand, giving it a reassuring squeeze. "I'm not going anywhere," he said softly. "I want to see where this goes." He paused for a moment, as if weighing his next words carefully. Emma's heart swelled with emotion at his words. She had never imagined she would be standing here, with him, in this moment. It felt like a dream, one she didn't want to wake up from. Liam smiled, the warmth of his smile making her feel like everything was going to be okay. "Then we'll figure it out together," he said. One step at a time. They stood there for a moment, their hands intertwined, the city lights casting a soft glow around them. Emma knew that this was just the beginning, that the road ahead might not always be easy. But for the first time in a long time, she felt like she was exactly where she was supposed to be. The days after the gala were a whirlwind of emotions for Emma. She couldn't stop thinking about the moment with Liam, the way he had looked at her, his words still echoing in her mind. It had been a week since they had both admitted how they felt, and now things were starting to feel more real, more serious. Liam had invited her to meet his colleagues at a business event, and although Emma was nervous, she was excited too. It was another step forward in this new life that had started so unexpectedly. But with each step her fears crept in. Was she truly ready for this world? As Emma got ready for the event, she couldn't help but feel the familiar wave of self-doubt. The dress she chose was elegant, but as she looked in the mirror, she felt out of place. She was used to casual clothes, her waitress uniform, but tonight she was expected to mingle with people in suits and gowns. Her fingers nervously adjusted the neckline of her dress as she took a deep breath. "You've got this," she whispered to herself. "Just be yourself." It was something Liam had said to her the night of the gala, and it had stuck with her ever since. When she arrived at the venue, the atmosphere was much different than the last time she had been to an event like this. This wasn't a charity gala, it was a corporate gathering, filled with people discussing business, investments, and mergers. She stood near the entrance for a moment, unsure of where to go. But then she spotted Liam, who was talking to a group of people across the room. As soon as he saw her, he excused himself and walked over, his face lighting up with a genuine smile. Emma's heart skipped a beat, and for a moment, all of her nerves melted away. She smiled at him, trying to hide her lingering insecurities. Liam chuckled, taking her hand gently. Don't worry, it's just another event. But I'm glad you're here. He led her into the crowd, introducing her to a few of his colleagues. At first, Emma felt out of place, like an outsider looking in. But as the evening went on, she started to feel more comfortable. His colleagues were friendly, and they treated her with kindness. It was clear they admired Liam, but they also seemed to appreciate Emma for who she was. The conversation flowed easily, and soon Emma was no longer focusing on her insecurities. As the night went on, Emma found herself talking to more people. She was no longer the shy girl at the edge of the room. She was engaging with others, contributing to conversations, and even laughing at the occasional joke. It felt good to be seen, not just as a waitress or a +1, but as someone who had a place here. Liam kept checking in on her, always with a smile that made her feel like she belonged. And as they stood together later in the evening, watching the crowd from the balcony, Emma realized that maybe, just maybe, she was ready for this. Liam smiled, his gaze softening. I knew you'd do fine, he said. You're more than just someone who shows up with me. You have your own place in this world. His words struck a chord with Emma, and she couldn't help but feel a warmth spread through her. She had always thought that people like her didn't belong in places like this. But Liam had never made her feel like that. Liam turned to face her, his hand brushing against hers. I know so. You've got something special, Emma. Don't ever forget that. He reached out and gently touched her cheek, his expression sincere. For the first time in a long while, Emma felt like the world wasn't against her. She wasn't just trying to survive, she was starting to thrive. And with Liam by her side, she felt like she had someone who truly believed in her. She smiled at him, the warmth in her chest growing. He smiled back, leaning in just a little closer. As they stood there, their hands intertwined, Emma realized that she had come a long way from the unsure woman who had walked into the cafe for the first time. She had found someone who saw her for who she truly was. And maybe, just maybe, this was the beginning of a life she never thought possible. It had been a few days since the gala, and Emma couldn't shake the feeling that something was shifting between her and Liam. Everything had felt perfect, too perfect. As much as she wanted to believe in the magic of their connection, doubts crept into her mind. Was she really ready for all of this? The lifestyle, the expectations, the world Liam was a part of? She had spent most of her life struggling, fighting to survive, never imagining that a man like Liam, with his wealth and status, would ever see her as more than just someone he was dating. He had said all the right things, made her feel special, but now, after their last few days together, she wasn't sure if she could keep up with the life he led. Emma sat at her small kitchen table, scrolling through her phone. She had just finished a shift at the diner and was exhausted. Her mind kept going back to Liam's words, how he had believed in her, how he had made her feel like she could belong in his world. But as much as she wanted to believe him, she couldn't help but wonder if she was just an outsider, someone who didn't belong in a world of luxury and power. Her phone buzzed, breaking her from her thoughts. It was a message from Liam. Emma smiled softly at the text, but something in her heart made her hesitate. She wasn't sure if she was ready to face him again, to confront all the questions swirling in her head. But at the same time, she missed him. She missed the way he made her feel alive, the way he looked at her like she mattered. After a moment of hesitation, she replied, "Sounds great. I'll see you tomorrow." She set her phone down, feeling a strange mix of excitement and unease. She didn't know what to expect, but she knew she had to go. It was time to face her feelings, to figure out where this was headed. The next evening, Emma stood in front of her mirror, adjusting her dress. She had chosen something simple yet elegant, nothing too flashy, but something that would make her feel confident. She wasn't sure what to expect when she saw Liam, but she knew one thing. She had to stop running from her doubts. She needed to be honest with herself, and with him. When she arrived at the restaurant, Liam was already there, waiting for her. He stood up as she walked in, his face lighting up with a smile that made her heart skip a beat. "You look stunning," he said, his voice full of warmth and admiration. Emma smiled, trying to push aside the anxiety that had been building up inside her. "Thank you. You look great too." They sat down at the table, and for a moment, there was a comfortable silence between them. The waiter came over to take their order, and Emma found herself relaxing a little, the tension in her shoulders easing. But as the evening went on, Emma couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. She could sense the weight of her own insecurities creeping in, the nagging fear that she wasn't enough for him, that she could never truly belong in his world. As they talked about their days, their lives, she found herself holding back, not saying everything on her mind. Finally, after a long pause, Liam looked at her with a serious expression. "Emma, what's going on? You seem distant tonight." Emma hesitated, unsure of how to express the whirlwind of emotions inside her. She knew she had to say something, but the words felt trapped in her throat. Liam's expression softened, and he reached across the table, taking her hand in his. "You don't have to be afraid, Emma. Whatever it is, we'll figure it out together. You're not alone in this." Emma looked down at their hands, feeling the weight of his words. Liam squeezed her hand gently, his voice filled with reassurance. Emma felt a wave of relief wash over her, but she still wasn't sure. She had never been in a relationship like this, never had anyone tell her that she was enough just as she was. Liam smiled softly, his eyes full of understanding. "You don't have to fit into anything, Emma. You just have to be yourself. That's all I want." Emma felt a lump form in her throat, but she couldn't hold back the tears any longer. She had been holding on to so much for so long, her doubts, her fears, her insecurities. And now, in this moment, it all felt like it was finally coming to the surface. Liam stood up and walked around the table, pulling her into his arms. "I'm here for you," he whispered in her ear. "Always. We'll take this one step at a time." As they stood there, wrapped in each other's arms, Emma realized that maybe she didn't have to have all the answers. Maybe it was okay to take things slow, to figure it out together. With Liam by her side, she felt like she could finally breathe again, like she wasn't carrying the weight of the world alone. Over the next few weeks, Emma and Liam's connection grew stronger. They spent more time together, whether it was over dinner, at the park, or just talking late into the night. Emma felt more comfortable in his presence, but the doubt still lingered at the back of her mind. Every now and then she would catch herself wondering if she truly belonged in his world, if she was enough for him. But each time she saw him, she was reminded of why she was there. It was because of the way he made her feel seen, valued, and important. One afternoon, Liam invited her to his office to meet some of his colleagues. It wasn't a big event, just a casual meeting, but Emma couldn't shake the nerves. She had been to corporate events before, but this felt different. This was Liam's world, and she wasn't sure how she would fit into it. She tried to calm herself as she picked out a simple yet elegant outfit, trying to keep her composure. When she arrived at his office, she was greeted by Liam with a warm smile. His eyes lit up when he saw her, and all her nervousness seemed to fade away in an instant. "You made it," he said, giving her a gentle hug before leading her into his workspace. The office was modern, sleek, with glass walls and views of the city skyline. Emma felt a little out of place as they walked through the halls, but Liam was by her side, making her feel less like an outsider. Liam chuckled. "It's just work, but I'm glad you came. I wanted you to see a bit of what I do." He led her into a conference room where a few of his colleagues were already gathered. They all greeted her warmly, and as the conversation flowed, Emma found herself slipping into the rhythm of things. She wasn't as nervous as she had imagined she would be. The people around her were kind and engaging, and they seemed genuinely interested in her. There was no pretension, no coldness, just good conversation. As they wrapped up the meeting, Liam walked her back out to the lobby. His hand brushed against hers, and she felt a little spark of warmth. "How was it?" he asked, his voice low, as if he already knew the answer. Liam smiled, pleased with her response. Emma looked up at him, curious. "What's that?" she asked. Emma felt her heart skip a beat. She had always feared that the differences between them would pull them apart, but hearing him say that made her heart swell with hope. Liam took her hand in his eyes never leaving hers. His words were simple, but they felt like the weight of everything she had ever wanted. In that moment, Emma realized that she had been holding herself back, afraid of something that had never been a real obstacle. Liam didn't need her to change. He wanted her for exactly who she was. Liam smiled, the warmth in his gaze making her feel like everything was falling into place. He leaned in, his voice soft but full of emotion. As they stood there, their hands intertwined, Emma couldn't help but feel a sense of peace wash over her. She wasn't sure what the future held, but for the first time in her life, she felt like she was exactly where she was supposed to be. And with Liam by her side, everything else felt like it would fall into place. Months passed since Emma and Liam had taken that first leap together. Their relationship had grown stronger with each day, and Emma was starting to feel like she had finally found her place in the world. What had begun as a simple misunderstanding, an awkward moment at a restaurant, had blossomed into something real, something deep. Liam had never treated her like an outsider, never once made her feel like she didn't belong in his life. He had accepted her for who she was, with all her imperfections, and she had done the same for him. One evening, as they sat in the park, the city lights twinkling in the distance, Liam turned to her with a serious expression on his face. Emma, sensing the shift in his mood, looked up at him, her heart racing. "Is everything okay?" she asked, her voice soft. Liam took a deep breath, his hand gently brushing hers. "I've been thinking," he said, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "I don't want to wait any longer. I want to spend my life with you, Emma. No more doubts, no more fears, just us." Emma's heart skipped a beat. She had known for a while that this was coming, that Liam felt the same way she did, but hearing him say it out loud made her feel like her whole world was shifting. Liam smiled, the kind of smile that made her feel like she was the only person in the world. Emma felt a rush of emotion wash over her. This wasn't just about a proposal, it was about the life they had built together. She had never imagined that something like this would happen to her, but here she was, standing with the man she loved, ready to say yes to the future he was offering. Without hesitation, she looked up at him, her eyes shining with tears. "Yes," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "Yes, I'll marry you." Liam's smile grew even wider as he pulled her into his arms, holding her close as if he never wanted to let go. They stood there for a long moment, wrapped in each other's arms, savoring the quiet joy of the moment. It wasn't about the ceremony, or the ring, or the details. It was about the promise they had made to each other, the commitment to building a life together, no matter what. As the days passed, Emma found herself thinking more and more about the future. The doubts that had once clouded her mind were now replaced with excitement and hope. She had always dreamed of a different life, a better life, but she never imagined that it would be with someone like Liam. He had shown her what it meant to be loved, to be seen for who she really was, and in turn, she had shown him the importance of staying grounded, of remembering where you came from. The wedding was small but perfect, just the way they wanted it. Surrounded by their closest friends and family, they said their vows to each other, promising to stand by one another through thick and thin, to love and support each other no matter what. And as they exchanged rings, Emma felt a deep sense of peace. She had found the love of her life, and she knew that this was just the beginning of their journey together. Years later, as they stood in their home, looking out over the city, Emma knew she had made the right choice. The life she had built with Liam was everything she had ever wanted and more, and as she looked at him, the man who had changed her life, she knew that the best was yet to come.